Hello, everyone. So I have a couple. Can you hear me now? Okay. Well, I have a couple slides from the organizers here. My name is Aaron Pahl. I'm going to be presenting a session on AI for libraries, balancing innovation and responsibility. This is being recorded. And here are some of the sponsors, founding partners for this event. Okay. So today we're going to be looking at some of the innovative ways that AI can be used in libraries to benefit librarians while maintaining a high level of ethical responsibility. I'm going to start out with a quick background on myself and then go through some of the major areas where AI can be beneficial to our work in libraries, including some resources like writing code and transcription. Then I'll close it out with a quick look at some future or upcoming AI tools that are going to be impactful to our field before I open it up to questions. So as a quick background, I joined the University of Alabama at Birmingham, or UAB, close to 2 years ago as their first digital curation librarian, primarily focused on our special collections and providing greater public access to that material. As part of that work, I regularly use AI in more of a supportive role. And before joining UAB, I worked as a digital archivist in a history museum in Florida. So considering that this is an AI-focused conference, I probably don't have to say this, but AI has been and continues to be a major discussion point, not only for our field, but in society in general. I'm sure everyone has noticed that just about every major product or service has started to incorporate AI elements. But how can we as librarians utilize AI while maintaining our integrity and the results that we're producing while keeping that ethical considerations? So there are a ton of tools available with more coming out every day, but many of those still need a lot of work before they can be fully relied on. For example, I created this slide by typing AI into the header and seeing what PowerPoint Designer gave me as an option. The best option it gave me was the image that you can see here. It's quicker, it is easier, but it doesn't produce the best results. The image it added doesn't have any real connection to AI or what we're talking about, besides looking somewhat, computer or techie or like a circuit board. And on top of that, with Designer, it will often cut off photos that it fits into design with no real regard for what's in the image itself, resulting in kind of a really bad looking slide. And I have one other example related to image generation. So about 4 months ago, I used the search term collage of AI tool logos. And these are the results I got from Adobe Firefly and Deep AI. Neither of them are very promising. Adobe Firefly, it's the wrong kind of tools, and those tools aren't actually tools. They just kind of look like them. And Deep AI, I really have no idea what it's trying to show me or tell me, or what it has to do with that prompt. And I do know that there are a ton of other image generators available, some of which can definitely produce better results. But the reason I'm highlighting these two specifically is because I want to show you kind of how quickly this technology is advancing. So this month I tried again, same prompt, same tools, and this was the result. Pretty clear improvement for both of them. For Firefly, the tools are much more fully formed and you can see what they are. Still not what I asked for, but it is better. And Deep AI has some pretty significant improvements. The content is still gibberish, but the layout and the organization and the kind of thought behind it is what I was looking for. And so even with these recent improvements and the other tools that are available, I do still consider image generators to be more of something to play with rather than something that's going to be really useful in a work setting on a reliable basis, especially when you compare it to just doing a regular Google search for that same phrase, which gives you essentially just what I was looking for very quickly. With that being said, AI tools have opened up a lot of new opportunities, and I want to highlight a few that are particularly relevant and exciting for our field. In terms of AI chatbots, when it comes to research and library work, the most useful applications I've found so far are writing scripts and helping with kind of first drafts of short texts, like collection descriptions or social media posts. So we regularly use scripts as part of our workflows, some of which are getting used on a daily basis. We have one person on our team who can actually write code from scratch and knows what they're doing. I am not that person, and yet with these AI tools, I can create simple and complex scripts just by typing out a prompt, telling it what I want it to do, and then going through some trial and error and quality control. Being able to generate these scripts has opened up a whole new world of possibilities for me, and it's allowed me to do things that I never would have been able to do on my own while saving me significant amounts of time. For example, the script shown here took me all of 5 minutes to generate in ChatGPT and ended up saving me probably a couple hours of busy work. The script on the left looks through a list of folders, extracts any PDFs, and places them into a single folder. The script on the right copies all the file names, including their extensions, and places them into an Excel spreadsheet. There are definitely other ways that I could have accomplished these same tasks, but this was really quick, it was simple, it was easy to do. And if I'd done this manually by hand, it would have probably taken me a couple hours worth of busy work rather than the 5 minutes to create the script, test it, run it, and I'm done. And then, next time I need to do this, I have that script ready and it takes even less time. So before AI opened up the possibility of generating scripts like this as someone who doesn't know how to code, it's not something I would have even considered as an option of something that I could do to accomplish a task. So these are both very simple scripts. They were both generated using OpenAI's ChatGPT, but I've also used other AI platforms to create much more complex scripts. So as an example, I needed a tool to scrape data from a website for a research data collection project. And to add to the complications, the website included a login screen before I could get to the data that I needed to collect. I needed to scrape over 50 different fields, including fill-ins, drop-down menus, bubbles, while also extracting attachments in various formats. And on top of all that, I needed to scrape data from multiple tabs that were on a single web page before moving on to the next web page and doing the same thing over again. So a much more complex process. And as I mentioned earlier, I used ChatGPT for those simple scripts, and I tried using it for this as well, but pretty quickly realized that I was stuck in a loop and it was sending me in circles that I wouldn't be able to escape. And so to get the job done, I had to look for other options and ended up finding GitHub Copilot. So GitHub Copilot is pretty well known at this point, but it's based on OpenAI's LLM, and it's much more narrowly focused on coding. It was really designed for people that already know how to code to help speed up their process and to kind of increase their efficiency. I don't quite use it as intended, but it still is really helpful. It does have a monthly fee, but as an educator, there's a chance that you can get access to it for free. So if you don't want to use something else or add a new service, ChatGPT being kind of the most popular service, it does also have options that you could use instead. There are a number of different GPTs available in its store that specifically focus on Python scripts. and a number of these work great. So they are another viable option. But using GitHub Copilot, I was able to generate a few different scripts that gave me access to the data I needed for my research. And really, without these scripts and without automating this process, the amount of data I was trying to collect, it wouldn't have been possible to do it manually or in another way. And so without this ability, I just would not have been able to do this project. And so again, with that being said, none of these products are perfect. I ran into errors with all of them, had to go through some detailed testing phases, and then had to go through and make sure that the results I was getting were accurate to the content that it was extracting. And so all of that does add time and effort and involves more work. But overall, coding is probably the most impactful way that I'm using AI tools and chatbots right now. But there are a ton of other ways that these tools can help in your daily work. So the accuracy and speed that we can generate transcripts and add closed captions has made huge leaps in recent years. And we use Adobe Premiere Pro to generate transcripts for really all of our media content. It increases accessibility, it increases searchability, it's quick, it's easy, it's a really streamlined process, and we've gone back and done it with all of our older material as well, which makes it really helpful to have. So instead of spending 2 to 4 hours or more describing or transcribing an hour of content by hand, can now be generated in a few minutes. And like a lot of these tools, the results aren't going to be 100% accurate, but it can get you 85, 90, potentially 95% of the way there, in which case you can leave it like that, or you can go through it and process it much quicker than doing it from scratch. If you happen to have a collection with specific themes, terminology, or a specific speaker, Whisper AI can be a really useful tool if you can add training data to that model to give it some context before running it and kind of generating these better results. If you don't have access to Adobe products, transcripts can be generated through YouTube for free. And we've also been using Zoom transcripts a lot lately. They've been really helpful for things like interviews, oral histories, and presentations. The accuracy of those transcripts that we found has been really good. They're also generated really quickly, and it's great, especially for a online Zoom presentation. Having that transcript is really helpful. So using a chatbot to generate a quick social media post is a great time saver, as long as you always remember to review the results for accuracy. I tend to like to dump a bunch of notes, unstructured ideas, along with parameters like a word count or style or theme, and generate a first draft. Typically, I won't really like the results all that much, and I'll end up rewriting the whole thing. But the advantage for me is that I'm not sitting there staring at a blank page, trying to figure out that perfect first sentence, first word. This gives me a place to start, and it ends up speeding up my process, again, even if I rewrite the whole thing. AI programs have also made handwritten text recognition much better, and companies like From the Pages are testing out its application now in conjunction with crowdsourcing for kind of added benefits. This technology is still in its early stages. There's a lot of differences between products, and it can still be hard to get a good result out of these tools. But I do think it's one of the most exciting areas with AI advancements. I think it has a ton of potential for our field specifically in helping to make our handwritten, special collections, museum, library, archival content more accessible, searchable, and usable for the public and researchers, and just kind of opening up access to all of that material, which is why I'm so excited about it. In terms of research, especially scholarly, academic journal publication research, considering the ethics, I really wouldn't recommend using an AI in the process at all. You can run into some issues with publications not accepting material that has AI involvement. And even if the publication does, the peer reviewers that are going to be reviewing your work may have different ideas about its use. And so the journal may allow it while the peer reviewers don't agree, and end up not accepting your work. And so I would just tend to avoid it in general. I do still think it has a place in our work for smaller projects or non-scholarly research. One of the areas that I have found it to be useful is related to finding citations and sources using a tool called Research Rabbit. So Research Rabbit is similar to Web of Science in that it can help you find and expand your research through citations of publications you've already found. And so for it to work properly, you need to put in a good amount of work to find citations on your own, and then it'll help you find others that are related to it. And it can be really helpful in finding ones that you weren't able to find in other ways. So Assistant by Skype is a paid platform, and it is useful, but I think it very clearly kind of crosses that ethical consideration of using AI for this type of scholarly research. Essentially, you can type in a research question and it'll give you a response with citations, and those are real citations, not hallucinations. The problem with this is it's pulling from a limited set of references, and because of that, it can miss some pretty critical sources. So if you do intend to use this, you have to do research outside of this as well, to make sure you have the full picture. I will say it can be useful for smaller activities like putting together an exhibit, doing research for a patron, something that isn't going to be something that you're not going to be trying to publish. And it can be helpful in those ways. So I have one last tool to share. So Bolt, or Bolt AI, is a really cool product that I recently started to explore, but I think it has a lot of potential, especially to help librarians or libraries that have limited technical or coding experience. I think this or similar tools can be especially valuable for smaller libraries without a dedicated IT or technology person or team to be able to create tools that can be beneficial for patrons and staff. And so with Bolt, you can prompt it to build things like a blog, a presentation, or even a mobile app, and it'll work through the entire process, walk you through the steps you need to complete it, both internally and outside of Bolt. And it'll help you do things like find a site to host it and registering a domain, which is really cool. And it lends, essentially, you can have no experience and it'll walk you through the entire process. So as a quick experiment, I asked it to create a presentation on AI in libraries. Really simple, really quick prompt, because that it's also really general. But this is the slide deck it created. It created it within a minute. And again, given my prompt, it is very generic, but kind of given the results and how quickly it happened and what it's showing, I think it could be useful in creating a presentation, especially if you have an outline and you can add more details to that prompt. I think this could be a really good way to get you kind of started in that process and get it moving forward. But there are a lot of these really cool tools available. So in addition to all of the resources that are already kind of out and available and in kind of wider use, there are a lot of tools coming in the near future as companies continue to incorporate AI into their products and people within the field start to build tools specifically designed to help librarians in our daily work. And so one set of AI products that I think will have the most direct impact on librarians' daily work is their incorporation into collection management systems and library cataloging systems. We use Clairvoyant, Ex Libris, Alma, Primo, that suite. And for me specifically, what I'm looking at is Alma Specto, which is a product that they are expected to launch at the beginning of next year. According to them, it'll have the ability to generate metadata automatically. And in some way, it's supposed to help with digital preservation. Not really sure about that or how that will work. But I saw a demo about the product recently, and it didn't provide a ton of details. But it did show off some of its features, including the facial recognition, photo identification portion. And I think that has the potential to really speed up the processing and cataloging and description of things like photographs, and increase the level of searchability by letting you draw connections between photos, or identifying a person in one photo and having it identify that same person in other photos. The area that I'm a little more concerned about is the metadata creation element. Given what I saw in the demo, I think the AI created metadata may give you a starting point, but at the same time, it's definitely going to need to be reviewed for accuracy and conciseness. And realistically, having that extra information in there may end up slowing down processing time because you're reviewing, editing, updating, adding, subtracting, and doing a lot more of that modification versus just being able to fill it out yourself as someone who has more experience doing it. I don't have any experience with Axial's AI tool, but essentially it sounds like it does the same thing that Alma Specto is going to do, and will probably have the same limitations. Harvard's Art Museum is experimenting with a few different AI tools, and they are very clear that it's a pilot project, it's an experiment, and it's not perfect. It has errors. That is part of their process. This is what their AI platform looks like. I tested out both the category search and the feature search. The category search was fairly accurate and made sense. It did have some errors, and it was limited to the 13 groups, even though it does say 12 on here, which is pretty limiting, but it can get you started. The photo recognition search was a lot less accurate. On this slide, in this photo, none of the photos here are axes. And when I scrolled down and looked at some of the other 278 occurrences, most of them were also not axes. So there is some accuracy issue there. This AI generated metadata description for the first photo was also not very accurate. Most of the content in these descriptions is what I consider to be filler and just kind of taking up space. And it wouldn't really help anyone who's interested in actually learning about this specific object, more just giving you some general ideas. I do think there's a lot of potential here, but I see it as more of a person writing the description and the AI learning from that, providing suggestions for both some new text additions and drawing connections with other objects that have already been processed. And so kind of building that interconnectivity, I think that is an advantage here. Either way, I think these changes are coming to collection management systems and library systems, whether we like it or not. So we do need to prepare for it, get ready for it, and kind of accept that they're coming. And along those lines, we need to find out how to work with these tools to maintain our current levels of accuracy and reliability, or ideally increase them. So this is a little different. This actually doesn't include any AI, but this is a short video of a virtual exhibit that we created. We used a product called Scenario VR. There are a number of other ones available that do pretty much the same thing. But we created this virtual exhibit to increase accessibility and interactivity, while also creating a resource that would last longer than our temporary physical exhibit. Add some interactivity elements. So the reason I'm showing this is because Scenario VR includes an AI wizard that can generate scenes based on a text prompt. And creating something like this takes a lot of work, and building in all these interactive elements is a lot of effort. So being able to generate it through an AI wizard could be really helpful for time management and processing. But it's not quite ready yet. Here are a couple examples of that AI wizard. This first one is supposed to be essentially the same as that exhibit that we just saw, same topic, but it is not. It's also about the size of a closet and has no doors. This is an AI-related museum exhibit. Doesn't have a lot to do with AI, and again, has no doors. This is a library that's embraced AI. Again, broken record here, but has no doors. The nice thing about this one is it does include some lettering that's spelling out words, or mostly words. This is the first one that I've actually been able to create that has real words and not just characters that are supposed to look like words. But I think this has a lot of potential for creating games, creating short little things that can be made for patrons to just explore and have fun with, or even have patrons create them themselves as a fun, interactive tool. But overall, there are a ton of products available that librarians can use on either a regular basis or for one-off projects. And as you start to explore these tools and try them out, it becomes a lot easier to determine what should and shouldn't be handled by an AI tool, and what will and will not be useful to your work. But with that, I will say thank you and open it up to questions for a couple minutes here, if there are any.
We had one question earlier. It was, do these varying platforms have explicit conversations around ethical considerations?
I would say they tend not to, or the conversations that I've heard from the platforms themselves, I don't think are up to kind of our standards, I guess I would say. I think the technology is still new, and their integration into these tools is still pretty new. And because of that, there are a number of people involved in these projects that don't know enough to be talking about them. And because of that, I mean, so as an example, I heard at a large conference for a product, during essentially like a keynote presentation, someone said they were going to have an AI tool embedded, and it was going to be 100% hallucination free. For anyone who's worked with these products, that is not realistic. And I heard this probably a year ago now, and a year ago that was definitely not realistic, which is kind of off topic, but yeah, ethics are addressed more outside of these products, I'd say.
All right, our next question is, how is AI development progressing in open source ILMs?
I don't know if I can, or if I have a great answer to that. Yeah, sorry, I do not have a good answer to that.
That's quite all right. We have one more question, and this was just a general question to the chat in addition to you, and that is, does anyone have good resources, especially ones available and easy to use for patrons, that help figure out what AI tools are ethical, especially in regards to being human-centric and environmentally aware? So if you have any resources, I know there was a lot mentioned earlier. If you just want to go through some of the most common ones that you use, and then I think people can look them up, determine, if they're human centric and environmentally aware from that.
Yeah, I mean, I think to be more environmentally conscious, the kind of your best bet is going to be getting using an AI tool that you can host locally and running it on your own machine, rather than using kind of the cloud-based options out there. I think that's going to have a less impactful direct impact. I Top of my head, I used one recently. I don't remember what it's called off the top of my head. But there are a number of options that you can host locally and run. They're not as powerful, and they definitely have limitations, but they are going to be more environmentally conscious. I did also see someone just made a note, or someone commented that they're unable to find a free version of Bolt AI. I am using it for free. I so I think it is available. I don't know if that's just maybe I got lucky and got into it a little bit earlier, but from what I understand, you can use it without even creating an account, and you can use it with an account, but a free account.
Okay, looks like we have a new question. It says, in your demo of Copilot, you mentioned needing a tool to extract data from a website. What kind of website? The tool created would not work, say, with the Web of Science or Scopus or PubMed, right?
So the uh, this was not this was a website related to wildlife rehabilitation, and kind of patient records on animals. And so because of kind of the login screen, or the needing to be able to log in and kind of all these other challenges, there are a number of web scrapers available that you can use for easier sites. Those wouldn't work because of the complexities involved, which is why I had to create something from scratch. I don't know that it would work on, or I think you could build something to work on Web of Science or PubMed or something like that. But again, you kind of have to, there's a lot of trial and error involved. But essentially it's, at least what I created is going through the pages more in a manual, or it seems like it's a more manual sense. So it acts like a person navigating them. It's not plugged into an API or anything like that.
It looks like those are all the questions for now. So thank you everybody for attending. This will be posted to YouTube shortly. And thank you, Erin, for the presentation. It was really insightful.